If I can sum up the Rebbetzin in one word, it's Malchus, majesty. Rabbi Yisrael, I'm not even talking about the fact that the Rebbetzin was the wife of the Rebbe, or the daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, or the Einikol of the Rebbe Rashab. She herself epitomized Malchus. Now again, we all know she was a very private person. Mamish a Malka, but at the same time, mit Hatzna Leches. Zaya behalten, very, very private. She had a very select few people that she showed herself to. But we all know at the same time, while she was very private and Hatzna Leches, she was ibegegeben to the Rebbe and to Chassidus and to Chabad, Bechlal, and Klal Yisrael, everything. She was mamish, ibegegeben. But she was Malchus. Now again, Malchus is not something you can buy, you can achieve, you can gain. You're born with Malchus, or you don't have it. And the Rebbetzin was Spitz Malchus. Now again, I'm just going to relive, again, what do I mean Malchus? So we used to go many times in the year to visit the Rebbetzin in our house on President Street. And we used to go as a family. And I remember these memories. I mean, these are going back 30, 40 years. We used to go back. We used to go to the house on President Street as a beshpucha. And we'd come out and we'd climb up the stairs. But before we rang on the bell, my parents made sure everybody was in tip-top shape. Everybody was neat and nice and clean. Because even though, again, that unique relationship between the Baba and my mother and the Rebbetzin, still was a tremendous kavod and ema and awe of the Rebbetzin. So we wanted to be perfect. We'd ring on the doorbell, and either the Pshalom Gansberg would answer or Chesed Halberstam would answer, and they'd escort us into the house. And it would be in what the Rebbetzin would call her salon. And then the Rebbetzin would walk in. She walked in, and you felt the Malchus, you felt majesty. Now again, she was not a physically imposing person. She wasn't a very giant, she was a very slight, small woman. But you felt, as soon as she walked into that room, you felt the regalness. You understood. I mean, I'm getting chills just talking about it, but her smile, her warm smile, her eyes, her look, you felt, you understood who you were in the presence of. But even with this, that the Rebbetzin gave a Malchus, she was such a warm, caring, nice person. Menar v'adzokin, she can be entertaining the biggest, most chashuv person to the most smallest child. The Rebbetzin cared. I'll give you some memories. Whenever we used to go to the Rebbetzin, so the Rebbetzin would entertain, obviously, my parents, my grandparents, and again, from a young age, me and my brother were younger, but the Rebbetzin always made sure that she had something special for us. Be it special ice cream for us, be it special cake for us. And she really cared. I remember one Chalamoid Sikkis, while she was entertaining my parents, my grandparents, she sent us out to the Sikkah to eat the cake and the ice cream. I remember actually Shulman Gansberg had a conniption because he came in and he saw my brother was sitting in the Rebbe's seat. He goes, stay auf, in the Rebbe's Benkel, stay auf. But the Rebbetzin especially came in afterwards and she said, are you liking the ice cream? So again, man redt sich wegen kleine Kinder, but the Rebbetzin cared. Just an act of caring. My mother, when she was getting of age to go on Shadichim, and she was coming time to go on a shidduch, I'm not sure if my grandmother mentioned to the Rebbetzin that she didn't have nice jewelry. Now, my grandparents were very, very chushuva people, but they were very, very poor. They were Holocaust survivors. They came to America penniless, and I guess diamond jewelry was not on the must-need list. The Rebbetzin insisted that my mother take her own jewelry to go on a date, because she wanted my mother to look beautiful and she wanted to be tzige past, and she gave my mother her own jewelry. Now, the end of that story is my grandfather was so scared, he put it into the freezer and he locked it up and he didn't let my mother take it because he was scared she'd lose it. But again, the Rebbetzin cared about her. And I remember, this goes back, Pesach, Mstama, Tovshim, Mem, Hey, Mem, Vov. I was in front of my parents' house in Flatbush, and all of a sudden a car pulls up, And somebody walks out, obviously Anash, you know, and he says, "Du wohnst Rebbetzin Klingberg? Rebbetzin Klingberg lives here?" And I said, "Yes, it's the Baba." Gives me a huge package, something wrapped in brown paper wrapping, and goes, "Das ist for the Baba, das ist von the Rebbetzin." So I go, I take the package, I go into the house, I go, "Babi, the Rebbetzin sent you a present." My grandmother takes the package, she opens it up, and there's a gorgeous, gorgeous picture of the Rebbe in a huge golden wooden frame. So my grandmother calls up the Rebbetzin. She goes, "Moshe, what's this?" And the Rebbetzin said, "Look, I know you were feeling down a bit, you were not in such a good mood, and I wanted to cheer you up. So Gleibmach," she said, "I looked through 200 pictures to find the picture that I would know that would cheer you up." Now, Rabbi said, the Rebbetzin was not a Baal Megazim. She didn't exaggerate anything. So she said she looked through 200 pictures, and she wanted to cheer her up. And I want you to know, Rabbi said, this picture, I've gone all the years, I've looked for it in Crown Heights, online. I've never found this picture, because I wanted to buy the picture also. But this picture is mamish special. And my grandmother had special enough on this picture. Every night, before she went to sleep, she'd go to the picture. Agite Nacht Rebbe. So she really had a know from this picture. And again, my mother has tremendous chfeitzim from the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin that they gave her as presents. They bought my parents the first china when they got married. They bought other chfeitzim, beautiful crystal, this. My mother was very nice. She had a blanket that the Rebbetzin gave her when I was born. And my mother actually cut up that blanket into 5 pieces to give to all the children, that we shouldn't fight about this chayfetz. But this picture still is a very, very, very chushev zach. Now again, the Rebbetzin with this malchus also had a sense of humor. What do I mean? My younger brother, I have a younger brother, Tzvieli Rokeach, Harav Tzvieli Melech Rokeach, who was the Bed Rebbe in Marine Park. As Buchrim, we used to go on Shabbos with a bekasha and a down hat. And then about 15 or 16, my brother decided to put on a Chassidish kaplish. He put on a bibehit, and he put on a different type of Chassidish kaplish. So that was Rosh Hashanah time. And the first time as a family that we went to the Rebbetzin would be Chalamoy Tzikis. And we decided to go Chalamoy, we were going to Chalamoy Tzikis, and my grandmother sees my brother putting on his hat. And she goes, "999, Tiyasov, get rid of the hat. Put on your old hat." My brother said, "What do you mean, Bobby?" He goes, "No, the Rebbetzin is used to this hat, normal Lubavitch hat. You're not the Chassidish hat. Tiyasov, Shiali, yes, Achshav." He goes, "Bobby, this is who I am. I'm wearing this hat." And she goes, "No." But my brother, Baruch Hashem, is in action, and he went with this hat. So we come to the Rebbetzin, we go in, and my grandmother, the whole ride is, we come to the Rebbetzin. The first thing she did, she looks at me, and she goes, "Shami, where's your nice hat? How come you're not wearing that nice hat?" So in a minute, the Rebbetzin got the whole picture. She put everybody at ease, and with a sense of humor, she diffused the whole situation. But the Rebbetzin and the Rebbe through the Rebbetzin had a tremendous impact in our life. Now, versteht sich, everything that we had, every major thing we had, we asked the Rebbe, my mother would ask the Rebbetzin, but every aspect of our life, the Rebbetzin had a tremendous impact. Lemushel, we were young children, I must have been maybe 6, 7, and the Rebbetzin called my Baba, and she says, "The Rebbe geheißen, as Zaya Pasadik, it's very appropriate that your Einiglich go before the outside from the Balatanyas or Igud from the Tzetzoim, all the Einiglich of the Balatanya get together, and the Rebbe says, Zaya Pasadik, it's appropriate that your Einiglich go, and it's a gute Zach." So we went, and we enjoyed, and I still have a kasha, Butman, all the Chaver there. So we followed the Rebbetzin, every single Kleinigkeit. Noch a Zach. And this is what Rabbi Fellow was mentioning. Again, they talk kama pom in the day, but the Rebbetzin used to ask my grandmother, "Ni, when are your Einiglich going to my man?" She used to call the Rebbe mein man. "When are your Einiglich going to my man for Farbrengen?" So my grandmother would call my mother, "Ni, the kinder darf gehen zu Farbrengen." So my mother told my father, "No, you have to start taking the kids for Farbrengen." And finally, my father listened to my mother, and he took us to the Farbrengen. And again, I was 8. And I remember we went to 770, and they put us right behind the Rebbe on the left side. And after the Rebbe said his Maimer, Kiyadua, the Oilam they sing, and they give mashka, and the oil stands up to say L'chaim. And the Rebbe would say, L'chaim, 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 L'chaim. So I'm this little 8-year-old kid, standing behind the Rebbe, wanting the Rebbe to say L'chaim to me. And I'm standing there, and the Rebbe's going, L'chaim, 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 L'chaim. And he takes a look at me, he goes, L'chaim. He said, Tati, the Rebbe saw me. The Rebbe gave me a smile. Tati, the Rebbe saw me. And Father said, Shem and you, look how many people are in this room right now. The Rebbe didn't smile at you. He smiled at the Olam. And even as a small child, Tati's right, yeah, okay, fine. The next morning at 8:05 a.m., my grandmother, who at that time lived in the Borough Park, she called my mother, Musha jetzt geriefen, der erste Sach, was der Rebbe hat gesucht, Nächten bei Nacht, heimgegeben von der Farbrengen, ins haben 2 neue Chassidim, in the Kreven sind gekommen. We have 2 new Chassidim, our cousins came. So the Rebbe did see me, and he did give me a shmeichel. So, Baruch Hashem. Now, again, the relationship that we had was very unique, that we had, when we spoke to the Rebbe, our interactions with the Rebbe was in 770. And our interactions with the Rebbetzin was on President Street. And they were never together. And in fact, the Rebbetzin was very, very machshiv her time with the Rebbe. In fact, if we were together by the Rebbetzin and it was getting late, the Rebbetzin would like point to her watch and say, "Es ist spät, mein Mann kommt daheim." And we got the cue. We knew it's time, because the Rebbe, the moments that the Rebbetzin had with the Rebbe, going kodesh kudeshim. So it was very chushiv. But again, anything that we needed in our lives, we would call up the Rebbe, and Kolzman, the Rebbetzin was alive. My mother would call up the Rebbetzin, and the Rebbetzin would get over from the Rebbe what to do. And in fact, sometimes it was mamish like the game of telephone, that there was some moments where the Rebbe was actually home, and my mother would call on the phone to the Rebbetzin, and that my mother would talk to the Rebbetzin tell the Rebbe tell the Rebbetzin would tell my mother. So she would get the message. But talking about telephone, for some reason, of the children, I was the Rebbetzins favorite. Now, maybe it's because I was the oldest, maybe I was Nois Sechein, but I was the Rebbetzins favorite. And in fact, when I was 13 years old and I went to Philadelphia to learn yeshiva, the Rebbetzin asked me a favor. She said, Shemi, I would like you to call me Jede Erev Shabbos and Jede Erev Yom Tov. So for 6 years, I had the schiyah to call the Rebbetzin every Friday and every Erev Yom Tov. Shlokim 68463. It's imprinted in my brain. And the conversations we had, the most mundane, normal conversations, like a grandmother speaking to an anical. Shemi, make sure you study for the test. Shemi, make sure you have enough sleep. I would tell her, if I tell her I'm going to a bash, and Sims is making a bash, she goes, Shemi, gebachting, make sure you're buying schoire, because schoire lasts. But we always spoke in English. And chas v'shulim, if I ever called the Rebbetzin, she would say, Shemi, my name is Mrs. Schneerson. She was mamish makbet, nochmal, the hatzna lachas. But noch a zach that I had, so Baruch Hashem, hayoim, there must be thousands of shluchim from the Rebbe around the world, from A to Z, you name a city, to a shliach and a shlucha from the Rebbe. But I think I actually carry a distinction, which I think I'm the only one in the world that has, that I actually carry the title of a shliach of the Rebbetzin. Now, when my brother, Rabbi Shmeilach, when he was bar mitzvah, he was getting bar mitzvah, my parents decided to go to Eretz Yisrael for the bar mitzvah, and we went to the Rebbetzin, to the Zegenzich from the Rebbetzin. And we were all there with the Rebbetzin, and the Rebbetzin, we were in the salon, the main room there. The Rebbetzin says, Shemi, I'd like to speak with you. And she took me into like the alcove. And she said, Shemi, do you have a camera? I go, yeah, I have a camera. She goes, you know, my man has a lot of shluchim around the world, but I do not have a shliach. I want to make you my shliach. I said, okay. She goes, when you get to Eretz HaKodesh, I want you to go to Kfar Chabad, and I want you to take pictures, and I want you to give me a report of Kfar Chabad. So I said, sure. When I came back, obviously, the Rebbetzin was interacting with my parents, so we didn't say anything, but in the car, my father said, what did the Rebbetzin talk to you about? I explained. The Rebbetzin wants me to be a shliach. Now, why? Ich weiß nicht. But came out of that a moirdige Meise. That we were in Eretz Yisrael for a few weeks, and my cousin in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Nuchem Schneerson, organized a taxi, a driver to take us around Eretz Yisrael. And on those days, that the old Mercedes with like the 6 doors. We had a Russian driver driving us around. And I remember we were in Tel Aviv for the day. We went to the museum there. And on the way back, my mother realized it's time to do the Rebbetzin Shlichus. So she asked the driver on the way back from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, you know where Kfar Chabad is? And he goes, sure, betach. She goes, please, we have to go to Kfar Chabad. He goes, sure. So he's driving on the way to Kfar Chabad, and he pulls down from the sunscreen. He goes, takes on the picture on one side of Tfilas Haderech, and the other side a picture of the Rebbe. And this Russian driver says, he asked my mother, you know who this is? My mother says, it's my cousin. The guy, Mama almost had an accident on the highway. He pulled to the side and said, I have to tell you, you're the Rebbe's cousin? I have to tell you the story. He goes, I come from Russia. In the 1970s, the story took place like 84, and he's telling when he was in Russia in the 70s, he was a Zionist. And in Rusland, in Jene Juden, a Zionist, going the Grest Avairo. They caught him, and they arrested him. And they sentenced him to 12 years Siberia, hard labor in Siberia. Fine, this Yid comes to Siberia. The first day he's introduced, what's his job? Every day he has to, with B'yadayim, he has to take out with his own hands 2 trees a day from the forest. The kalte, russische, sibirische winter, he has to pull out every day. There was no track, there's no plow. B'yadayim, he had to take out 2 trees. Fine. The second day he's there, this Cossack, this russische Cossack comes to him, the Shaigitz, and says to him, Žid, verscholtene Žid, not only are you going to do your work, you're going to do my work also. And my driver was not a little boy. And the 2 guys went at each other, and they both ended up in the hospital. Now, Siberia in the 1970s, they had enough new prisoners coming that they didn't have to take care of any medicines, that enough people, they didn't need to take care of anybody. And this driver was nebuch in bed, mamash tzahakt, and he's in pain. And also a doctor in a white coat comes and starts looking at his chart and says, you're a Jew? You believe in God? You keep the Chumash, the Torah? He goes, no, I'm a communist. This doctor looks at the chart and comes back and starts giving him needles. The guy says, what's going on? He's going to kill me? But he starts getting better. And the week goes on, but this doctor keeps on coming. You keep the Torah, you keep the Bible? No, I'm a good communist. He comes out after a week, he's better. And he comes out and he realizes something very special. Instead of working in the Siberian forest, the Kalt, the frost, they changed his job and they made his job that he has an office job, a cushy office job in the heating. But then he realized there was a pitfall to this. Because every day that he was in the office, this doctor who was probably KGB, is coming and interrogating him, trying to chap him. So you want to go to Israel, right? You want to go to Jerusalem? You believe in God. And every day this guy has to say, no, I'm a regular communist. I love Khrushchev, whatever it was, Brezhnev. A year goes by. And after a year, the commandant, they call him to the commandant's office. They say, the commandant wants to see you. He goes to the commandant. And the commandant gives him paper and says, you're free to go. 12 years, 1 year, what's happening here? He goes to the train station, remember his Lushan, and he's standing at the train station, and all of a sudden, this black car pulls up to the train station. Now in Russia in those days, the only people that had cars was the party members and the KGB. And this doctor comes out of the car and says, where are you going? You going to Jerusalem? You going to Tel Aviv? You going to Haifa? He goes, no, I'm going back to Moscow. I'm going back. He goes, no, I know, you're really going to Israel, right? No, I'm going back to Moscow. The doctor pulls out, he said, a revolver, and says, into the forest. This guy says, oh, those scissors. That's the end. That's the end of the story. The doctor takes him to the forest and says, who do you think saved your life by giving you medicine? Me. Who do you think changed your job from working in the cold Siberian forest to a nice, warm job in the office? Me. Who do you think got your sentence commuted from 12 years to 1 year? Me. You know why? Because you are Yid. And you know what? I'm here. If a Yid needs help, I'm here. But you know why I'm here? And he takes out a picture from his pocket, unfolds it, and there's a picture of a man with a long white beard. He goes, this man sent me here, that if a Yid needs help, I'm here to help him. And there's many people like me throughout Russia. If a Yid needs help, that we're here to help him. So you should just know Russia is not for you. Go to Israel, you'll be able to know what Hashem is, what the Torah is. And when you get to Israel, you'll find out who this man with the long white beard is, and you have to thank him. And the man starts crying to my mother and says, this is going to the Rebbe. You später, it was the Rebbe. So a very, very unique experience. Again, so I remember my parents actually stayed in Eitzul. I had to start yeshiva early. It was Elsman. I came home early. I went to the Rebbetzin to do my shlichus. In those days, we didn't have digital pictures. I had to actually develop the films. And I went to the Rebbetzin and I told the Rebbetzin the story. And instead of me, I expected the Rebbetzin to say, wow. The Rebbetzin looked at me and smiled like, I know all about it. I know everything. This is not a wundersche Meise. So again, as close as we were with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, I can, and again, Zachen that nobody else can claim and nobody else can say that they had. We didn't do enough. We didn't nitzos what we had enough. In fact, one thing I regret, Adayim Azeh, when my youngest sister, my first year in Philadelphia, my youngest sister was born, and it was a very, very schwer Leder. To the extent it was life-threatening, but, and this is not for now, but the Rebbe Mamish gepravet offen and niesen, and it geratet my mom's Leben. He saved my mother's life. But it caused for certain things to happen, and cut a long story short, that Pesach, my mother had to be in the hospital for Pesach. And my father had to be with her for the Sdorim. So when I came home, Rosh Chodesh Nissen from yeshiva, or right before Yom Tov, my grandmother tells me, Shami, Mushat geriefen, the Rebbetzin called, and she says, Vibal Tati and Mami are going to be in the hospital. She wants to invite you. You should stay by the Rebbe for Pesach. So, like a thunderbolt, my mind's thinking, I'm a 13-year-old boy. Now, by the Rebbe of Pesach, it wasn't like Perenshis and Chassidim and Gabuim. It was Mamish, the Rebbe, and the Rebbetzin, and Zehu. So this is what a 13-year-old boy's mind's thinking. I'm going to sit at a table with the Rebbe, and what's the Rebbe going to do? He's going to hear me on the Gemara. No, I'm not going. Shami, guy, once in a lifetime. Babi, ich gehe nicht. And Rabbi say, I was also action, but my actionis caused a loss, something I can never ever take back. Imagine me staying Yom Tov, staying in President Street, coming, being with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin.